There we go.
All right, today we have Jeff Snyder with us. He's a senior consultant here at Guide. He has over 40 years of experience working with XA, even before it was XA. So rest assured, he is one of our experts. In addition, we have Randy Kenny, Guide Products and Consulting Manager. Randy has been working with XA, again, before it was even XA, for about 30 years now. And then myself, Wendy Broom, the Marketing Director. And today's webinar, just to quickly review the agenda, we are going to walk through
There we go.
what exactly item availability is. It is a Guide developed product specifically for XA. And then Jeff will review the advantages of item availability compared to PowerLink and then compared to green screen. And then we will share with you a live demo of item availability and leave some time at the end for Q&A. Also, this is meant to be an interactive webinar, so as Jeff is presenting today, please feel free to drop your comments and questions in the chat, and we will certainly address those at the end of this webinar. So thanks again for joining us, and with that, I will hand it off to Jeff Snyder. Jeff, take it away.
All right. Well, again, good afternoon. Appreciate you taking the time out. I'm hoping that this is a good experience for you. I'm very excited about this particular Guide product. We have a fleet of Guide products, as some of you may well know, but this particular one I got the privilege of getting involved with and working with some of the best technical people that I know of in the United States that work for Guide Technologies. And so we had a couple of people put this together for us, and I'm going to walk you through this. As Brendy, they were saying, I started with this product in 1979, is what he was saying. And started with green screen, became browser, became PowerLink, and then finally NetLink today. Some of you may be running NetLink. But in all these years, there's never been a good solution to the question, what is available today? Customer calls in, wants product ABC, how many do you have available? And it was always kind of a hunt and peck to find that out. You could certainly see what the on hand was immediately, but what is available? And if the customer said, well, I really want 100, when would you have 100? Well, that became even trickier, as some of you well know. So I'm going to walk you through this. So our definition of item availability, okay, what we did was we put together a quick inquiry that actually shows the actual quantity available that could be promised within a time phase running projected balance. I know that sounds like wordy, but the short of it is some of you may be familiar with the term available to promise, or ATP. So that's what we've developed. This is not available in green screen. It's not in vanilla. It's not available in PowerLink. It's not available in NetLink. It never was, and I don't know that it ever will be. So that's why we developed this product, and I'm glad to be able to share it with you. So you can access the item availability from the display menu, from either the item warehouse or customer line business objects, either one. PowerLink, of course, what we used to do there was we developed some workbenches, and we developed a workbench here for item availability, and we can certainly do that for you folks as well, so you can avoid the display menu. NetLink, we can develop a split screen for our 10 clients. There's also an additional above and beyond item availability for the part number you're looking at. You know, maybe you don't have enough on the available, but you're saying, well, what's in the pipeline for components, purchase orders, lower level manufacturing orders? So we've added this item called component availability. Component availability would require EPDM. I'm sure that most of you are probably on EPDM. We still have a few customers running PDM. So what are the prerequisites? Real quick, you know, you've got to have some base modules available, right? You've got to have materials management so we can get the on-hand balance and aggregate totals, CSM for the customer orders, OBPM for the manufacturing orders and due dates and quantities, you know, what's coming down the pipeline. And PM if it's a purchase order, a purchase item we're looking at. So we support this item availability anywhere in the level in the bill of material, from the final assembly, through sub-assemblies, fabrication, down to the purchase parts. So it does this netting and shows a time phased of projected balance. We'll show you that. MRP, planned orders, are not considered at this point. This is considered an operational module to look at what's available what's available now based on open orders, customer orders, manufacturing order, and purchase orders, what's available. So consequently, part of it is we have to have an on-hand balance that's fairly accurate. Quantities and dates and quantities on expected orders, whether it be COs, MOs, or POs, have to be valid. So the tool is only going to work as well as your data, of course. It lines everything up. It's truth serum, as you'll see. But it could be used as an impetus or catalyst for some customers to say, hey, we want to use this tool, and force people to get some of this other data elements correct, right? It could be used for that and that purpose too, as well as the valid bill of material if you're doing component availability. Okay, so again, we're doing is showing the current available inventory and future projected available. The point being, it's easy, quick, and accurate. Okay, no head math. Simply not available again. It's you have something in green screen. Some of you may have enough background in XA or Mapex, as it used to be called, to maybe have some exposure to green screen. There was a menu option called item availability, right? And it tries, but it's pretty weak. We'll show you that. All right, so let's take a look at some of the advantages. The first thing is comparing it to PowerLink. Most people are running PowerLink today, if not NetLink. So we've got this item warehouse business object, right? And we got the item, the warehouse, and on hand, and we can certainly tailor some of this. We can get rid of the decimal, we could reorganize the fields and some of that kind of nice stuff. But the question is, customer calls up and asks about this part number. What do you have available? Customer service is going to look at this and says, well, I have 100. Well, the smart ones would say, well, wait a second. I know I have 100 on hand, but I've got something going on here with on orders and allocations, right? So before I tell the customer I have 100 available, I better do some digging to find out when are they really going to be available. So in vanilla PowerLink, out of the box, the solution was, and when I taught this, back in the late 1990s and early 2000, right? You had to hit the display menu and drill into this stuff. You had to drill into customer orders, drill into production receipts, or maybe purchase orders or production where, depending on where you're at in the bill of material and which one of these participate. And then you had to kind of write things down and do the math in your head to find out what's really available today. The alternative, of course, we finally learned moving on from 2000 that we could build these things called workbenches. They're relatively complex. You had to be careful with the data elements and fields and stuff. But we would have a series of them. We'd have some for final assemblies, other ones for fabricated parts, and other ones for purchase items, because some of them wanted to deal with customer orders, some with manufacturing orders, some manufacturing order allocations, purchase, so on and so forth. So you couldn't build just one workbench. You'd have 15 panels open. So we would always build a series of workbenches. And I lived this world. Any place I went in the early turn of the century, I was constantly putting these workbenches together. And it would look something like this, right? So we have the on hand up here, and we would broadcast the customer demand. We would turn around and we would sort this and maybe, edit it or filter it, right? So just looking at this real quick, requires some head math, right? This is the best we had, all right? So how many are available today? How many would you say are available right now today? It says 100, but you come down here and you start looking, you say, well, wait a second, I've got 20, some required on the 13th, some required on the 20th. Got some required, well, wait a second, I got a manufacturing schedule receipt coming in on the 23rd, for 30. That'll cover that. So that one's covered. These two are due before that. So these two got to come off, right? So if I was smart enough, occasionally, if I, educated enough, I said, well, I would tell the customer I have 80 available today. And that's the truth of the matter, right? But again, I mean, there was a lot of head math and probably a lot of mistakes that were made. So we were probably overcommitting inventory and so on and so forth. So a better solution, that's why we developed this. Take the head math out of it. Click on this, another great workbench, item availability workbench, find the item, broadcast down here. Now we're showing an available to promise inquiry down here. So same part number, but now we're showing this running balance that I was talking about. Here's my on hand, I've got 100. But why is it, how does it calculate this 80, right? What it recognizes that I've got this future unmet demand, these 20. It's got to come off that 100. So the simple net available, that's why we call it simple, because it's 100. But the ATP, and you could change that heading if you'd like to, spell out available to promise. That's simple enough to do. But you've got 100 minus your future unmet demand, it takes you to 80. So it takes all the guesswork and head math out of it. Then we come around, and if somebody said, well, when are you going to have 100? Maybe the customer wants 100. Maybe they wanted all that 100. So, well, wait a second. I don't have 100 until 123, right? There it is right there. I've got 30 coming. So my simple available jumps to 110, 80 plus 30. But I've got some more unmet demand down here that's got to come off of that 30. So I can only increase that 80 by 20, the net of these two. So again, it's easy and simple. That's the beauty of this product. I mean, we could stop right now, but I'm going to go ahead and continue to show you some other things, but that's the base of it right there, this slide. If you wanted to drill into a subassembly, I just show this as an example. Now down here, you've got an on-hand for a subassembly. Well, now you may not have custom orders on a subassembly. You may as a aftermarket part, I get that. But here we have a replenishment order. And then we have another, that parent back on the first slide that you just saw, he's posting an allocation on that 123 date. So we take that in consideration. That's why we call this column customer or manufacturing allocations, because it could be either one. Replenishment, we could relabel that replenishment to say purchase order or manufacturing order, but we kind of recognize people understand what a replenishment order is. And then again, you end up with your ATP. Same thing with the fabricated item. I've got two manufacturing orders here coming into play. One with the replenishment, one with customer allocations. Same idea. Net out. And the purchase item. The thing about what I wanted to point out on this particular slide is the importance of the dates. Here, now assuming that today is 12/1, that's when the slide was produced. I've got this purchase order, right? This replenishment order starts with a P, that's a purchase order for 20, and it's going to affect, my simple and my ATP. So it's taking the 100 off, but it's adding that 20. But that 20, that purchase order is dated at 11/20 or 11/30 rather. So late purchase orders are gonna booger this up a little bit, right? So we've got to be careful. Again, you could use this as a catalyst to say, hey, we got to get our open purchase orders, our open manufacturing orders, or our open custom orders need to make sense, and they should regardless. With or without this tool, there's a lot of other reasons why you'd want those dates and quantities to be accurate. But again, I'm just saying you could use this as a catalyst. All right, so let's take a little journey through some history here. Compare this to green screen. So back in the day, when I started with the product, like I said in 79, 1980, up to about 1990 or so, before browser came out, this was all we had. So you could punch in an item, said item balance, and this was what your presentation was. Pretty gruesome. You couldn't get rid of the decimals. You couldn't reorganize the fields. As a matter of fact, they kind of double stacked the headings and double stacked the data underneath it. So you're looking at this and what's the availability? What's available? Well, here you got, or here's available. So it's this top column, not this one. That's the on order. So it was, oh yeah, it was pretty gruesome. And then they had another one actually called item availability, right? So here you punched in your part number, your warehouse, and it told you you're on hand right on the top. And then your manufacturing allocations was just taken off. They weren't time phased at all. They just came off the top, irregardless of how far out in the future they were. And then they started showing you the on order, the replenishment orders, not time phased or anything. Here's, so here's 30 coming, same data that you just saw in PowerLink. And then finally the custom orders. So back in 79, 1980, this was the best we had. And I taught this too. And I said, look, you got to look at the on hand, then you're going to come down here and scurry through these dates and find the ones that are before this manufacturing order. So there's 10, there's another 10. So these 20 got to come off that. And that's what they had to do, customer service. They finally gave us a couple of dates that we could put in to kind of separate things. Made it a little bit easier, but it was still pretty clunky. Again, it was all we had in 1980, but it was state of the art back then. At least it was online, not a report, not a report that was dead on arrival. So then above and beyond the availability that you saw, the parent, we added this component availability. And so you could take a part number, and if you looked at the available, and it wasn't, the customer said, well, I understand you have 80, but I really need 100. You could drill into the bill of material now and find out, well, okay, could we cut a manufacturing order if we had the capacity? What's the profile look like for the components that are required? Is there anything we can do to squeeze in an order and make this customer happy? So just again, it's just navigational inquiry tools is all we're really doing. So here's a nice workbench, right? Now from here, we can show the item availability you saw before, but we could also broadcast directly to the components. I'm going to show this to you in a live demo. From here, of course, I can take that B, right? I could right click, display, and drill into his item availability. Because back here, I'm only seeing the top, I'm only seeing the first row. I don't know, it says ATP is 0. But when I drill into it, they say, well, what's the full profile of that component? I can see down here now. Now I'm looking at a component. Well, this is CFAB, but I can come down here and see exactly what's going on. When is that 310 going to be available? And what's going on with this guy? So just drilling about. Pretty slick stuff. If I'm over here and I wanted to take one of these guys and just drill into that manufacturer or that customer or the on-hand balance, they added this little icon right here to actually open up that object. So now I could drill into the, in this case, it's the item balance record, item warehouse record. And I could hit any of these tabs. Of course, I can hit display and drill about from here as well. So to answer all the questions that you need to have answered to see whether you have what the customer wants, when it is currently available, and what you might be able to do to improve a situation. From the item here, there's also an action icon where you can enter a quantity required. So the customer says, hey, I want 100. So I put 100 in there just to see, because I'm looking over here and I don't have 100 today. Customer wants 100. So again, I can now expand this components, and the extended quantity automatically gets expanded by that 100 for the quantity per. Then I can see I need 100 and I don't have any on this B. Really, I could have put that in as 20. I have 80, so I really only need 20 more. I'll show you that in the demo. But again, it's just useful information. If the parent ATP doesn't have enough and you want to see what's in the pipeline, that's all we're doing. You can also find the same information from the CO line. So if you're on a customer line for whatever reason, you wanted to see item availability or component availability, you could drill it from the CO line as well. And in NetLink, we had, we could build a card file. Otherwise, you're out of the box with the item availability. You're going to right-click display and hit item availability or component availability. But most people will want to build a workbench or two. And if you're not comfortable doing that, we could certainly assist you. That's not a big deal. In NetLink, we came in here and we have to do a split screen. So here's the same idea. There's my part number, my aggregate totals coming across, and then my detail on the right-hand side. And I can do the same thing by hitting that and right-clicking all, and so on and so forth. Component availability, same idea. Oh, this is some of you may be thinking, well, there's this ATP thing that you may have seen in Infor. So they do have a card called ATP Detail. It is only available on the CO line. It's not available from the item warehouse. Why I don't know. But it's available from the CO line. But this is their display. And I've worked with this before. It's pretty rough. You get your available to promise here that match ours. Expected receipts. Again, you don't know whether it's an MO or PO. You might be able to deduce that. Demand, is that a customer demand? Manufacturing demand? What kind of allocation is this? Because we're not showing too much data here. We're not showing the customer order number, manufacturing order number. And then again, projected balance, which is a little misleading to me. I like the word simple net available rather than projected balance. I think that could be misleading. Then here's the future unmet demand. So we reorganized the fields. We thought we would make it a little more logical on the math going left to right and end up with ATP on the right. And then we added the column, some heading information that makes it a little clearer what's going on, including over here, is that, if it's a customer, what's the name of the customer? If it's a manufacturing order, what's the part number description? And then the other thing that you'll notice is they're available to promise. On 123, it says 110. Ours says 100. They dropped this order. If they're on that order, if you're on that line item and you hit the Infor ATP, it drops that order. They do not include it. So we think it's important that it be included. So we do, just to have the full picture, if you will. Okay, so the bottom line is we don't, it's not a modification to XA, like we had to do in the 1980s. People wrote their own kind of, some people wrote a rather sophisticated net available or something in green screen. It's transparent to the user. They think it's baked in. And we add this column, this time phased column called ATP to do the auto math. Again, no guesswork. It's easy and accurate. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the, let me see if I can get to the demo here. I didn't notice, let me open this, turn this back. Were there any questions on the chat box, Wendy? Anybody saying anything before I get into the demo? No?
Jeff, no questions right now.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So we'll take a little quick journey through history. So again, back in green screen days, whoops. No, I got into that. I don't know what's, hold on for a second. My keyboard's acting up all of a sudden. All right, let me go back here one more time. All right, here we go. All right. So again, just real quick. We looked at this on the slide. But you can see it's a little quirky. We can't get rid of the cost stuff. We can't get rid of the decimals. Again, this is kind of what we lived with way back in the day. Some of you may be doing this today. I still have customers that lean heavily on this inquiry right here. They think this is the best they got. They thought that was a little easier to deal with because they were used to it. Some people I could peel off green screen and get them accustomed to the workbenches idea, but some folks were just like, well, you got 4 workbenches here, Jeff. I'd rather go here and punch my part number in because their eyes were trained on where to look and and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of head math involved in trying to figure out what's available, right? So we could set an application card up. I just did this pretty simply. I just put a card out here, put some workbenches out here, put a card file out, an application card file. So part of the beauty of PowerLink, just on a quick tangent, is being able to organize your business objects. You should not be using, in my opinion, you should not be using vanilla out of the box PowerLink. That's too busy. We could certainly do a better job. So I open this up, and again, there's the part number I've been talking about. There's my 100, and I had to do this display again and kind of drill in and find, all right, what kind of customer orders do I have, right? What kind of production receipts do I have going on with this guy? And then kind of open them both up side by side. And I got 100, again, some coming off. This 127 is coming off, but here's my replenishment order, so on and so forth. So you saw this in the slide deck, but I wanted to show you on live code. And that's what we used to do. Again, I taught this, and then they came out with this fancy tool called a workbench. And I thought that was the cat's meow, quite frankly, at the time. And all of a sudden, I could put together workbenches. It would broadcast this stuff for me, keep me from climbing through that display menu and trying to keep my windows open. So this was pretty slick. I could filter it, I could sort it, so on and so forth, right? So pretty slick, but still some head math. I still don't know what the net available is today without walking through these transactions. And of course, the more activity you have, the harder it was. So then we came up with this one, the guide product one. And all of a sudden I can broadcast down to here. If there's something crazy going on with the date, actually we changed this. If the due date of a requirement is earlier than today, that'll show in yellow now. So it jumps out at you, say, hey, wait a second, be careful with this date. It may not be reliable. But assuming the dates are right, the quantities are right, this is just doing the math for you. That's all it's doing. Simple and easy. And then we had the component availability. So let's just pretend that the customer wanted 100, right? And we're saying, well, we got 100 on 123. And it's like, well, today's 12/15. You can't do any better than that? I got to wait till January. Is there anything you can do for me? I said, well, I've not seen that I have any component Bs on hand, right? I don't have any, right? At least the ATP tells me 0. But let's just see what we can do. So I'm going to come up here. I'll hit this user button, quantity required. I need another 20. So we'll hit that. This is okay. So the extension, okay, I only need 20. 20 per is 1. So I really only need 20. But if this was like 5.3, it does help with the math to put the quantity up here, the required quantity. You can hit this guy, this B, display. Say, well, all right, let's just see we got the customer on the phone. Okay, wait a second, hold on. hold on. I do have a manufacturing order coming. Yeah, the on hand is 0. I don't have any ATP, but I do have 50 coming. Got 50 coming here. And I've got 30 available on 120, right? I only need 20, and I've got 30 right there. No, I've got 20 available. So I could improve this order to 120 without any question, doubt. I mean, I might want to call production because it's an open manufacturing order just to make sure that from a scheduling point of view and a capacity point of view that they're okay with that. But it looks like I could slide this order up to 120. Now I could come over here on this guy and say, well, let's just double check to see what would that do if I try to increase this manufacturing order from 30 to 50, right? That's what I need to do. I've got the components, but I need to increase them. So I hit this lookup button that was developed, drill into that manufacturing order, and I can say, okay, it hasn't been started, it's not in progress, nothing's been started. So it's just final assembly. What kind of hours are we talking about? Okay, let's just take a look here. All right, so they're only an hour a piece. So it's only 3 hours to make 30. So if I needed to make 50, I could surmise that's going to take 5 hours, right? So just information that's available at your fingertips by doing some simple drilling about to make some prudent, accurate decisions. If it was way out of kilter, then yeah, you probably want to call production control or scheduling or planning. But anyways, that's just a sort of the drilling about that you can do from that point of view. And then when you're done, close your windows out, get back to your main one, you're set to go. So I just think that's pretty powerful. We didn't have this for years. That's why Guy developed it, and I was proud to be a part of that. Let me close this one now. And like I was saying, on the customer orders and quotes, this is the only place I got to go to the line items. If I'm on the line item, I can display Infor ATP detail. Again, here it is. And it does not include this order. This order is dated 127, and then it's missing. If you pull up item availability, put them side by side, you can see we include it. And we add some more descriptive information. So here's my final assembly guy coming in, customer order for Radio Shack. Here's a replenishment order coming in, and then another customer order. So that is what I wanted to show you today. I'm hoping there's some enthusiasm about the product. And I will turn it back over to Randy or Wendy. I think that's as much as I really had.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy, any questions or chats that you're seeing?
I don't see any questions in the chat. No questions or comments. Would anyone like to submit in any questions or comments now?
There actually is one under questions, not under chat. It says, where can this session recording be retrieved? I have peers that need to see this but are not available.
Okay, so that's a great question. Anyone who registered for this webinar will receive a follow-up email with a link to view the video. In addition, once we conclude the webinar, I will be cleaning up the recording and I'll add it to our YouTube channel. And typically I include the YouTube channel link in that follow-up email as well. So you'll have a link through GoToWebinar, but you'll also receive a link to the YouTube channel for Guide Technologies.
And another question just came in. Can you set up min-max requirements with color coding using this tool? Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I understand the question. You want, I mean, min-max is a planning tool. This is really an inquiry tool, so I'm not sure. I'd have to understand a little bit more about what they're trying to accomplish. But I mean, we can certainly put min-max on the, you know, on the views from the item warehouse. But if they're looking for something to help with the calculation, it's not an available to promise tool using min-max for available to promise. I'm kind of, maybe we could take that offline and talk it through.
Yeah, we've got the person that asked, we can follow up.
Sure.
Do you mind moving through the final slides so we can put up your and Randy's contact info?
Sure.
So here we have, we'll just do full screen for that.
Yep.
So here you have Jeff and Randy's email addresses. Please take note of those. And they will be happy to address any additional questions. Speaking of which, we have one that just came in. Did you see that? Randy and Jeff, it says, would it work with total inventory across multiple warehouses?
It is warehouse specific. That may be an enhancement we could do. We take a lot of guide products and we start with the base code. We've done this with several customers in the past. You know, if there's a particular situation that you need, then we would scope that out, and it can be developed above and beyond the base code.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question.
But at base code, it is warehouse specific.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Let's see. All right, we got that answered. Are there any last minute questions or comments? Jeff, if we can move to the final slide, we'll go ahead and again, say thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And we are more than happy to, again, answer any additional questions. You can also visit the Guide Technologies website at guidetechnologies.com. And we will send a follow-up email containing the recording link tomorrow. So thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.